negotiate upfront. There's no harm in, especially if you've built the rapport through the interview process and if you've really understood what the company needs, you can start to really transparently discuss what your needs are as an individual and a contributor to this organization, and being able to really walk through, here's what I bring to you. I believe we can reach something of an agreement. I appreciate your initial offer. Is there any room for discussion here? Could we look at something like these numbers? And just do some research, try to find the good numbers. Anybody that's listening to this or watching this, I'm happy to send you some information, but it is drastically important to value yourself and understand what your worth is and be realistic too. I think sometimes there's two extremes. We either way overvalue or way undervalue. And I've found myself undervaluing myself for a long time. And I think a lot of that is imposter syndrome.
Hi, everyone. This week, I am delighted to be joined on the Future of Security Operations podcast by Joe McCallister. Joe's journey in security is unique, pivoting from selling BMWs to becoming senior manager of cybersecurity operations at media buying platform The Trade Desk in under a decade. Along the way, he's led impactful initiatives in risk management, threat hunting, and incident response through roles at The Trade Desk and managed services provider Synoptek. Joe, I'm delighted to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I want to start out by just learning a little bit more about your journey. 10 years ago, you were selling BMWs, but you've moved up the ranks incredibly fast, something that I know a lot of folks listening will want to learn how. How have you how did you grow your career and establish your reputation so quickly?
Well, it's funny. I do kind of talk about my career in two lives. I say I led a former life in retail and sales and all of this stuff, and found out pretty quickly the BMW job in particular taught me that I wasn't a lifelong salesperson. So to all the salespeople out there, I admire you for what you do. I respect it, and having been in those shoes, oh, good on you. However, it wasn't made for me for the long term, and so I. Um, Worked in retail, went over to a technical career in fixing stuff up at a big box retailer with a small kind of team of what you may know as the Geek Squad. And I'm not ashamed to say
Oh,
that's where I
no.
started. It was a great place to start, but been into tech for a long time. Really started back in the Genesis days of putting the Game Genie in and messing around with memory states, which was really fun. Like thinking back to we're technically hacking. But my career post kind of sales and management went into just IT. And then I got a nice break at Synoptek. They brought me on as IT help desk. And what I credit a lot of my growth from IT help desk to end user services, I was kind of a road warrior going to all these client locations, in these freezing server rooms, racking and stacking and responding on weekends. What helped me actually get ahead in these careers, especially now that I've been at the trade desk for 5+ years, what's always benefited me the most is the soft skills. And it is hard to really land how important. I could talk about them every day for the rest of my life to folks looking to get into cybersecurity, and it won't be enough. They are so vital to be able to have the EQ to understand, your counterparties frame of mind or what's important to them and what the goal is of a conversation or what you're really hoping to get out of it, and meeting in the middle, negotiation, the stuff they don't teach you in a lot of the certification paths, and a lot of the even schooling doesn't necessarily get you there.
Interesting. That's also something that, in order to be a good salesperson, you have to have that EQ. You have to be able to build that rapport. And the best people that work on help desks are people that are able to do that as well. I suppose, how did you identify that you wanted to go down a little bit more of the technical route then, and you wanted to go into security?
At first, it was purely selfish. I actually was, again, not a great salesperson. I loved connecting with people, but that's not necessarily what gets the ink on the paper a lot of times. And what I found I was best at was being able to know technology and also convey it to
Hmm.
any audience. And that's what's really paved the way for my career as well, is just being able to simply deliver. But I wanted to get into technical because I could be tasked with something and go complete it. Sales can sometimes be a big mountain to look at. Of you've got at BMW, for instance, sell 13 cars this month, and I was averaging 5 or something. So I clearly wasn't cut out for that. But I could also I would get the customers to understand the value of the add-ons and trust me. So I would sell less cars, but we would get warranties and tints and all the kind of extras, hook them up with a spare set of snow tires for these Colorado winters. Um, and that type of information, like what really struggled, what I struggled with, I should say, is tying my effort to an outcome
Hmm.
other than I got a sale. And it didn't feel like I was getting those little wins. So I got burnt out. I think the same thing holds true in cybersecurity. If you're not getting any or even little wins, or not stopping to recognize like that's a win, then you're going to just feel destroyed by the end of that day, week, month, year, and it really kind of compounds over time. But I know the question was about how did I decide to go to technology? It was really because there are documented ways to do things, but everybody can reach the same destination in a very different way. Every system is different. New systems are coming out all the time. I also really enjoyed kind of having the answer. I liked being the go-to guy.
I love it. Are you still like you've obviously transitioned up through the ranks, but are you still involved day to day in like incidents and investigations, or have you completely transitioned out?
Despite my best efforts to stay close to the tech and in the super tactical down boots on the ground, running the playbooks, dreaming up the new playbooks and executing and testing them, I have gotten further away, but I
Mhm.
still try and uh thank all goodness in the universe for my leads who run the teams a little closer to the ground. They tell me to leave. They tell me to get out of there. But that's also an expectation I set with them because I know, having grown up in incident response and in
Yeah.
IT, I just want to get back in there and look at some logs and see if I can find the answer. And they tell me, no, you're not. You're the communications guy now. You go talk to the execs. We got this. That hurts.
Yeah, and it's hard to keep those skills up. But yeah, I definitely like whenever there's an incident, it's exciting. It gets that adrenaline pumping. But at the same time, yeah, you're right to trust and to let your leads do their job. Well, I suppose having been a lead, I think just 18 months ago, what advantages do you think, I suppose, coming from that role and coming from that role so recently, do you think that would give you over a CISO or a leader who's a little bit more removed from that kind of work?
I think probably the biggest struggle that we run into, that I see, is bridging that gap from, oh, we need to turn DLP on. That sounds like a wonderful idea. However, there's a lot of things that go into it. How's our data inventory look?
Hmm.
Do we even know what we're doing? And have we, run any sort of proof of concept, proof of value to really understand what the output's going to look like and how are we going to operationalize that output? What does the playbook look like when we find something nasty or something that's on a scale of 10, if it's a 5, is that bad or is that ignorable? Is it something we can summarize in a report? I think that's the most challenging thing that I've noticed in conversations is, oh, it's just a setting in the portal. We'll go turn that on. Like, no, please don't do that. We need to really evaluate. And I've found that better planning always, even if the plan, goes to hell the first 5 minutes of the actual implementation, the planning is what helps you understand that you can pivot to your second plan, your third plan, or know what your options are ahead of time. If a config isn't going to work, or if the desired state ends up being not so desired, or a stakeholder comes in and says, nope, I'm going to change direction on this. This isn't as important. Being that engineer background really helps me understand that it's not just flipping switches or going after a CIS control and saying, we're going to go check this box, to these big, lofty statements of, we have an inventory, we have software, yada, yada. Great. It's a little more too.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, from talking to, it's amazing. There's some teams that absolutely just want to tick that box, and like in some situations, it is important to tick the box. But what I'm hearing is that you're just a lot more thoughtful about prioritizing and planning, and not dumping your team in it, and not letting them just get, that alert overload that happens when you turn something on that's untuned, that's not ready. How do you how do you prioritize, I suppose, what to do next, what to turn on, what to prioritize, what to POC?
Really, it boils down to I think one difficult thing for a lot of practitioners when they get in the field, and this is a sweeping generalization, so forgive me, but it feels like it's right at that 2-year mark. A lot of practitioners get in, start practicing, get that confidence. They start to reach this great level of knowledge and confidence that I love to see. However, they start to creep into this overconfidence of they they know it all, and security is very important to the business. When in reality, the business is more important than
Yeah.
security at the end of the day, right? If we're being completely honest here. Um, it becomes very difficult to prioritize the business, but that's how I prioritize it. It is, I know what security looks like. I would love to say, we're locked down and have all the STIGs in place, and there's immutable infrastructure, and detections as code is going as planned, and we've got every layer of defense in depth just accounted for and great, but that's not the world we live in. The priorities that we have are dictated by the goals that the company wants to go after. How can we achieve those safely? And I don't want to say stay out of the way, but how can we kind of be this invisible hand that kind of pushes us back onto the path or keeps us there, instead of being the hard nose and the you can't do it that way. We want to enable, not uh, shut them down.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's I love the way you're describing it, but that is how security teams have to be these days. They have to be business enablers. They have to prioritize the business. And unfortunately, yeah, a lot of I see people that want to be like almost security influencers where they're saying, hey, I want to like I'm gonna do this because it's the hot thing to do because of this threat over here. Or on the other side, it's I want to yeah, like we absolutely have to, get rid of this risk. And you're like, no, that's like it's a risk that the business has decided they're comfortable with. So we should we can't block, we can't, even though it would make us a little bit more secure, we have to accept that. So it's great to it's great to have that perspective. And having said that, like you are obviously super close to still like two incidents, and you're super close to the team by the sense of it. Like when you think about the threat landscape, what are you concerned about, or what are you thinking about in the next 2-3 years that you're like, hey, this is something I want to prioritize.
I think the biggest thing, we get these thrown at us at every conference we go to, every video we watch, like you kind of said, some of the social media stuff that's out there. There are all these new threats. I think the biggest one you're seeing today is AI, of course, and it
Mhm.
is definitely something that has altered how I think about the threat landscape and what really is our surface when it comes to AI. But really, the most important thing for me has been backing up, slowing down, and saying, it's actually identity. So it just in
Yeah.
trend data, it comes back to identity, because we are seeing account compromise, business email compromise. Shoot, I'm getting to my personal Outlook, my personal hotmail.com. I still have one of those that I can't part with for some reason, but to that Microsoft account, I get challenges, MFA challenges all the time, but it's a passwordless account, and I see how our users could fatigue from that, or if they have two accounts on their mobile device, they don't know which one it's coming from right away, and they can hit approve. Thankfully, we have other stuff, fish resistant MFA, number matching, things like that that really help and don't introduce too much more burden. I'd like to think that today we're a little bit more used to MFA being just part of the landscape, part of
Yeah, completely.
being a corporate citizen, instead of back in the day when it was, that's a pain in the butt. You're slowing me down just to get an email. Like, I'm not going to implement it. But identity is first and foremost. And the browser is this really interesting new kind of it's not new, of course, but it's kind of this new frontier in the cyber domain that is harder to gain insight into. We're seeing more products and more partners that can do it better. But it's a place where most of the work is done today. Apps on desktops are a little harder to find.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrifying how much is done in the browser, and not just how much is done, but how much can be done in the browser. And then I was sad to see, but I think the was it Duo Security had the CR Excavator tool, and I think that's just slightly fallen by the wayside these days. And I'm like, hey, that was great. This was really helpful for a lot of plugins. Um, I could definitely talk about AI for a long time, but I want to talk a tiny bit about the growth that the trade desk has seen and how um that's evolved. I was looking at your stock price, and it has well, let's just say if we if we put in some money there when you joined, it would be it'd be worth a hell of a lot more now. But how is the company seeing massive growth affected, I suppose, the maturity of the team? How's that growth been? What has that growth been like from the inside?
It's actually a huge talking point when we're either hiring or I'm just having regular meetings to kind of pulse check the team and how they're feeling about their mission and how they're doing with their progress. I tell them we are a small but mighty team at the trade desk, and we have in the security realm, and we have we have grown and scaled with the organization, but the organization has scaled so quickly. I mean, during the pandemic, we doubled in size in terms of just headcount and employees. So that's a lot more just endpoints. If we're just looking at what what actually flies across a piece of hardware in a user's home or at the office. What I talk to the team about is we are in a unique space, right? There are large organizations that have mature security programs, been around for 30 plus years, and you go be an analyst at those teams, and they're phenomenal teams. They do incredible work, but you are largely running playbooks somebody else wrote, turning knobs somebody else installed. And what we're able to do here is identify a problem, come up with a solution together as a team, and then go affect change. And that's a big, I think it's been a big boon for when we're looking for talent. We can say, if you want to have an impact, if you want to contribute, we need you to do that very quickly. And we allow them a lot of that latitude when it comes to what they can do. It's very rare to hear a no, don't do that unless we know it's going to break something very important.
How do you, I suppose, how do you keep your the other teams that you're working with on side when you're doing that? That like with that explosive growth, it's really hard to keep aligned with the IT team, with the engineering team, with the product team, with even your finance team. Like, how do you make sure that, or your HR team, I know, but like, how do you keep, I suppose, keep everybody, not necessarily say security top of mind. And I know you've said that like security has to be an enabler, but even still, I've seen in companies that have grown fast that those silos have developed as that growth happens. But it doesn't seem like that's happened from the outside in the trade desk.
Yeah, it's well, and I'll be probably the first to admit that I need to do an even better job of this. I was just
Interesting.
talking with one of my directors over on the IT side and was saying, hey, we used to have monthly meetings to align on our roadmap. We've got to get back on those because a lot of what they're doing can affect what we're looking to have done. They might be working on zero trust and I had no idea, or they might be working on a new network system that would be super interesting, and you want to know about those things. But it comes back to that communication as a leader, as a even an analyst, anybody in the security organization has got to be able to communicate cross-functionally and really talk the language of who you're approaching, right? Like when I go talk to finance, I don't necessarily talk risk can mean different things to a finance team than it does to a cybersecurity team. They have different definitions. And so understanding the language in which they speak, using the word liability when you're talking to somebody else or when you're talking to legal, and really talk to their field and show that you're at the very least interested. If you don't know anything, go ask, set up a lunch, go on a walk, but learn the lingo that they are also seeing, because there's no doubt news in their worlds about cyber, about security, about infosec, about breaches. Everybody's freaked out about them, right? And any publicly traded company is using this hammer of, well, we don't want to, you know, set off the SEC. So let's be communicative. Let's determine what materiality means to all these different functions. And I just have to use my communication skills and talk between them and say, what are you going after? What are our common goals here? And how are we contributing together towards them?
How's your experience coming up through working in IT affected that, or has that helped?
It did, and I asterisk that with I also think because of having I think everybody should at some point have to serve on like customer service or some check
Yeah.
lanes somewhere. Some service industry is great as well, because I think once you change your lens from I'm just here to fix things to I'm here to help people get back to work and deliver, make them look good. I'm like, we're the helpers, right? It's the help desk for a reason. It's not the break fix desk at a lot of organizations. I think my time in the help desk, and again, the reason that I think I was able to go so far so quickly was just being understanding how to de-escalate, because that's a stressful. uh, Same in cyber today. It's helped me quite a bit, but somebody comes in, something's broken, my email's not working, and I've got to get this deal out today. I got to get it out 4 hours ago. What can you do to help me? Just identifying their frustrations and knowing that, hey, I know this is awful. It's not your fault. Let's check it out and see what the problem is. Really getting on the same side of the table against the problem, not you and me fighting each other at a table.
Um, I'd love to get some practical advice there. Well, I know I love that suggestion of working working in support. It's something that our CEO does a little bit, which is great. He spends a bit of time on the front line with the XDR team and with our support team, and more. The engineers are not as keen on it, to be honest. But he does that. But it's like that's super useful to gain that empathy and gain that trust. But like, what are some practical things that people in your or that other like listeners in your shoes can do to help that collaboration with IT or with other teams?
The easiest is probably going to be really informal and just take somebody out to lunch, go for a walk, ask them
Yeah.
like, hey, what's on your mind? Like, what's the most important thing that you're going for? Or what are you trying to get done in 2025? You guys working on your plans and stuff? Like, what projects excite you and what's kind of the status on those? Because you can really serve as an unblocker as well, because somebody might be very passionate about fish resistant MFA, since I mentioned it earlier, it's still
Yeah.
top of mind, right? Our IT guys might really be jazzed about it, but it's been deprioritized behind some other project. We may be able to help them unblock that, because that's going to make us more secure and better up against what is the most prevalent attack today, and where people end up getting in the front door at a lot of organizations is through these phishing emails. Let's go talk to somebody else. Let's work together and solve these problems. And also just understanding that the new hot thing, sometimes they kind of flash in the pan, sometimes they stick around too, but really understanding how to like go learn about the new things, understand what generative AI actually is, where it plays, what the risks are, but also understand that the fundamentals aren't going anywhere. We've got to understand what should be in an inventory, what good rhythms and playbooks look like, and everybody wants to be a red teamer and a pen tester, it sounds like, coming out of school or coming out
Yeah.
of watching YouTube videos. And I usually try to at least say, that's awesome. I want you to chase your passion. I also want you to understand you're going to have to be a killer in Microsoft Word. Like, you're going to be writing so many reports, taking so many screenshots. So really understanding kind of where you want to go will also help you in your current role and your future role, because a lot of people don't know the doors that are presented to them once they get through. So I would network a ton, network as best you can. And I know that is pretty common advice, but even networking internally, go out for a lunch, talk to somebody in your team at a different office or something, just to get a different perspective on careers and see how you can kind of talk to people helps a lot.
I love it, and I think it's even if it's advice that people may have heard before, it's super important to, I suppose, to reinforce it. But also, it's really yeah, like it's kind of like your flawless fundamentals. If you do your flawless fundamentals right, you'll go a lot further than doing something super flashy. You were talking like a little bit there though about I suppose, yeah, like career growth and management style. I'd love to learn. You've transitioned now into I suppose being a manager and I suppose leading that team. Um, yeah, I suppose yeah, I've got like about a dozen different things that like avenues I could go down here. But one of the things that you've talked about is, I suppose, let me rephrase this, because I've got like there's like five questions here that I'm trying to figure out which the best one to ask is. So okay, let me say it. You talked a little bit about your, I suppose, management style and about that transition into being a leader. What does growing that team and building a good team look like to you?
That's a great question, because I think I get really excited about opening up headcount. Anytime we're able to go higher, I think everybody wants to say, like, let's just go higher. What I'm thinking about differently today versus where I started growing the team was
Hmm.
essentially, when we started, we were illustrating, painting this picture. Here's how many alerts, here's how many systems, here's how many incidents, here's how much work we have just on the operational reactive side today. That dictates about this many people. Here's, you'll use your metrics like security as a percentage of IT spend. Start talking in dollars definitely helps. Uh, how I'm thinking about it today is a little bit different in terms of we've been able to, we're looking at hockey stick growth, right? So every time a person is added, we used to do this kind of one-to-one, and you see the trend, and it's a straight line going up and to the right. It's like, okay, we'll add another analyst here, we'll add a senior engineer here, another analyst here. But what we really needed to do was sit down and look at where the gaps are, where the biggest a big saying I hear today is what is it? Low, it's like low I can't think of what the first part is. Something low volume, high value. That's what I
Mhm.
could not get my V words right. But low volume, high value, and what that really means is, can we analyze our workloads in a way that is also put up against the hiring plan to say, this is what we actually need with our next person. A detection engineer, for instance, will get us a better bang for our buck because we can tune the alerts down. We can get you the most important stuff in your inbox or in your alerting system. And you're not getting out of bed for something that's a either false positive or a benign positive that's kind of par for the course for what an engineer in this location might do. And you're saying to yourself, we got to tune that thing out, but I'm working so many alerts that we don't have the time to do it. So balancing that can be really tough. What we actually ended up doing at the trade desk was pressing pause for a minute on response and upping our thresholds so that we could go back and tune down the stuff. Like impossible travel is a classic one, right?
Yeah.
Logging into the VPN. I'm in London seeing that office, but I'm from Denver. What the heck? Why am I logging into the Denver VPN? I can't be in two places within 30 seconds of each other, especially across, a giant body of water. How do we tune those down? How do we figure out to get the best fidelity into the hands of our analysts is really how I think about also scaling and hiring. But one thing that for the personal side of our folks and the growth and development is I try to view it as talent on loan. As much as I'd like to see my analysts stay with me for 30 years, like most of them are pretty young, they got a good chunk of career left. The realities of today's workforce is very different. So I view it as my responsibility to retain them as long as I can. And that's by training, certifications, keeping them challenged, and really just making the job fun for them. And as a manager, sometimes that takes some providing air cover. We all know how fun the meetings can be, and the decisions and the pivots and the priority changes can be really frustrating. And as a leader, what I try to do is digest all of that and put it back to my teams in exciting ways that I know they're going to actually be energized by the work or by the change, and at least understand it. We don't have to agree with it, but we can disagree and commit and move forward. And trying to tie that all back to their development, all back to their career, asking them where they want to go, what they want to do. If it is pen testing, I would never discourage anybody from it, but you should know the realities of it. You should also know the realities of a GRC career. You should know the realities of just reviewing contracts all day. Like yeah, there's a lot to it.
And it's totally acceptable for people to, yes, to move on as well. In fact, like you have to encourage it. You have to, as you're saying, like this talent is on loan, but like, allow them to thrive to such an extent that they either, get a better job in the trade desk or move on elsewhere. And that's really exciting for everybody else on the team to be able to say, wow, this person's able to, grow so fast and, get these new opportunities. I was reading that I think it was a little while ago, you had an incident where the team were able to thrive without you. But I really enjoyed that attitude that like you're even, I suppose, trying to automate yourself. You try to build yourself into I'm not going to say redundant role, but allow the team to take over that responsibility as well. How, oh yeah, what's been key to your success there? That's something that certainly would it could hurt somebody with that's less confident, I suppose.
Yeah, it's really hard to do, and especially talking about going from IR, which is my bread and butter for years, and stepping out of it. Even that small piece takes it's really hard for me not to
Hmm.
respond to an alert and say, I got it, I'll hop in, let me take a look. Um, and sometimes I'll do it as a co-pilot or fly along with somebody and offer my sage wisdom of, oh, I've seen this before. But what I really try to do is there's a great book called The Power of Giving Away Power, which kind of touches on this. And it's giving away, delegating, whatever you want to call it. I don't love delegating, but allowing others to feel empowered to make the decisions that shape the teams. I ran my two teams that I'm primarily responsible for are incident response and third party risk management.
Hmm.
And I got two amazing leads on those teams. And about as quickly as I could, I started to say, you need to make this decision. Here's one that I can help you with, trying to kind of get down to the nitty gritty of, do you agree with this direction for your team as a like roadmap? I'm never going to just say, here's what we're going to go do. You go do that. Very collaborative from that perspective, but also allowing them to do everything. The leads have hired. They've made the hiring decisions on who they're going to have on their teams. Um, from jump. I've tried to just offload the hiring manager as well, And really, from a managerial perspective, what it does is it frees me up to be more of counsel and advice giving and saying, here's what I would look for, and allow them to make their own mistakes because a lot of them don't have 20 years of team management experience or anything like that. And I can get back in there, try not to helicopter parent too much, but get in there and try and maybe just offer some advice. And when a tough conversation might need to happen, let them have it as best I can. Prepare them, role play, do all the stuff that might arm them, give anecdotes about hard conversations I've had to have. But it's more fun for me to see somebody learn in this way by absolutely doing what they want, especially once I know their goals. I want to get the management. Great. You're going to have a hard conversation with somebody about performance. You're going to have to do more with less in terms of resources. Let's work through this. Here's how I would approach it, but what do you want to do?
Yeah, I remember one incident I had. I was, I think, manager director in a company, and we had an incident with, yeah, our engineering team. And I remember, uh yeah, we just had like a massive disagreement. I was like, you guys absolutely have to, I don't know, it wasn't patch this, but like whatever, you have to patch this. And they were like, no, we're just not like, this is going to take too long. And I was not seeing eye to eye with my counterpart. And the CISO basically just took me aside. I was like, hey, or sorry, I went to the CISO. I was like, hey, I need you to like go and say you need to patch this. And they said, no, like I can do that. But the best way for you to do this is actually you to set up some one-on-one time and like go meet them and then like not quite hash it out, but like have that like tough conversation and have that grown up conversation where you really need to understand where they're coming from and they really need to understand where you're coming from. And it ended up being, yeah, building a much better relationship in the long run. But it was such a lesson where I just I didn't realize that, yeah, being empowered to solve my own problems was important.
Yeah, I used to have a manager that would ask you numerous times, what would you do? What do you want to do? Like, I need you to make the decision. And
Hmm.
then finally, this was actually back in retail and on at a Best Buy store, just kept saying, how would you handle this? What do you want to do? And part of me got so frustrated, I said, I just need you to make a decision. No, you need
Yeah.
to make these decisions. These are you're running this as if it's a business within a business. And I've kind of carried that's the way we look at it on my
Yeah.
teams as well, is we're providing a service to the organization. We are a company within the company, and we should treat our internal customers like we would any customer that's paying us. Outside, just a shift in mindset kind of makes a big difference in allowing them to struggle through these hard, like he's not getting it, they're not getting it, they're not doing what we're asking them to do. Well, let's why would they? What's the problem? What are their goals? And are they in direct opposition to our goal?
And like, fortunately, they very rarely are in direct opposition. You just like, fortunately, most people are, very aligned on actually we want to make the trade desk wildly successful. So it's about understanding where they're coming from, which is, I think that's one of your like leadership principles, like assuming positive intent, recognition, candor. Like, how did you even, or how did you develop that in such a, you know, well, I keep ragging on you being like short period of time, but how did you develop that? How did you have that as your yeah, it's one of your principles.
It's just served so well. It like in terms of saying like bang for buck and immediate gain, I've always received a better boon from building strong relationships and assuming positive intent. Very, very exceptionally rarely have I ever found anybody was actively trying to do something malicious or not do something. It was just sloth, right? I don't think that is
Hmm.
truly what most of us are trying to do in our day-to-day jobs. And I think what helped me understand that that was going to be effective is being able to sit down with somebody and understand what they're trying to do. And at the end of you said it perfectly. Our goals are actually the same. And that reframing of it's you and I against the problem. So let's find a
Hmm.
way through. It's not you versus I. We should figure out, okay, you want to ship something with a less than secure control. Like, okay, great. Awesome. I'm excited for the customers to get this benefit in their hands. But here's what we see could go wrong. Like, have we thought about this? What's the logging look like? Really going through kind of our thought and also trying to discourage first order thinking. That's a real challenge in a large organization is a change can be made on one team for that team's benefit and totally wreck another team and put them sideways on their systems or their roadmap and something like that. And I think understanding is just what gets everybody moving forward. And how I got there was just trial and error. I can try and kick indoors, but it has never worked in the long term. You usually find your tenure at a spot like that, or the people that do that, their tenure is usually pretty limited.
Yeah, it's yeah, and you can use it when in an incident it can be appropriate to say, actually, no, we're taking this decision right now. But yeah, if you're trying to build up that relationship with the stakeholders, it's definitely not the right way to go. One thing when I was reading about about some of your initiatives, one thing I absolutely loved was your transparency on salaries. So you even gave a talk at a conference talking about how security people can arm themselves and equip themselves with more information. Can you, yeah, just can you tell me a little bit more about like A, how that became important, and B, any advice for people that are out there trying to, get themselves more money? This is going to be the clip that's going to be like taken out, posted, and shared. So
Yeah, to start with, it became important because we needed somebody to do it. We've got an amazing security community here in Colorado, and a couple of folks had run a salary survey for a number of years, CISOs at that. So, time's limited.
nice.
And
Yeah.
as I was still in my engineer boots, I decided that I would help because I think it was just something I was looking to give back to the community. I had got my job at the trade desk here kind of through this podcasting community by volunteering to go interview speakers at a recent conference. Panned out well. I got a job out of it. There's a little bit more homework there that I did, but it did pan out well. And I decided I need to give something back and said, I will help with the salary survey, which turned into essentially running it for the last 3 or so years. So there's a recurring salary survey, and then I give a talk about it in June at our Rocky Mountain Information Security Conference here in Denver. And it became important once I also had learned a valuable lesson that, and this is the advice too, negotiate upfront. There's no harm in, especially if you've built the rapport through the interview process and if you've really understood what the company needs, you can start to really transparently discuss what your needs are as an individual and a contributor to this organization, and being able to really walk through, here's what I bring to you. I believe we can reach something of an agreement. I appreciate your initial offer. Is there any room for discussion here? Could we look at something like these numbers and just do some research, try to find the good numbers. Anybody that's listening to this or watching this, I'm happy to send you some information. But it is drastically important to value yourself and understand what your worth is and be realistic too. I think sometimes there's two extremes. We either way overvalue or way undervalue. And I've found myself undervaluing myself for a long time. And I think a lot of that is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Um, I'm getting better. I'm recovering, but I think it has shown me the importance. And I have a family, I think we all want to do the right things. I want to work to live, not live to work, right? So the money is important. It's not something
It's
that recruiters should be incensed when I say, yeah, I'm looking for this.
it's also totally okay to say like it's also okay to say the money's important, and this is something that like it's important for everybody. It doesn't matter like who you are. So going into it saying, actually, you know what, like this is my or is a priority of mine. It's not a dirty word to say, like, yeah, I want a little bit more. I want to touch on the imposter syndrome, but before that, how is like your approach and your transparency and your understanding of it? How is that approached having those conversations as a manager when it comes to compensation and when it comes to like giving them advice on how to show their worth? I don't think there's any conflict there, but like how have you given them advice, or how have you had those conversations, or has it changed that?
Yeah, it's being exposed to how or an organization. I've been lucky enough to have a transparent boss and reporting chain as well, who have helped me understand how we do comp at the trade desk, which
Hmm.
I think is a very well thought out, extremely well staffed with amazing humans too. I love talking to those people about how these are figured. We use some pretty standard tools that are across the industry to kind of factor out what a given level should be, and we put a lot of thought into it. And I try to share that. I try to share a little bit of the math. I can't, peel back the entire curtain because I am not the payroll team, nor am I an accountant, nor am I even good at math in the first place. But the conversation definitely circles around total benefits as well. We have an amazing package. My job, honestly, is very easy when conveying the value the organization reflects to its people, because we have an amazing benefits and total comp kind of plan. We have equity. We also have quite a few programs to help. Like I've even, I don't want to say exactly how much it cost, but we had a very low cost birth of our second child. That was wonderful. And those are perks that are kind of intangible, but also I understand when you see the number, you want to see the number go up. I definitely identify with that. So I try to explain the levers that we have at our disposal, which are base salary and equity. Um, Not an option at every company, but it's worth knowing if it is an option. For the longest time, I worked at Best Buy for 10 plus years. I didn't know they gave out stock. I knew you could buy it. I didn't know that if you did a good enough job, they would actually reward you with some. Um, no shame on Best Buy. This was, gosh, 15 years ago at this point too. So I don't think uh, this probably moved on,
I,
but yeah,
yeah, I think like the part of what you're talking about there, and part of what's like you're right at Best Buy is explaining to people all the different levers that you can pull, but also like the transparency around it as well. It's like, hey, here's the bracket, and here's where we think you are,
yeah.
and here's like not only that, it's like, hey, like here's the track that can get you promoted. Here's the job levels that are needed so that you can move to that next step in your career. And here's like, hey, you're stacking up against it. You're doing great, but here's the areas that you need to improve upon. And when you reach this stage, that's when that unlocks this area over here, or this extra equity release, or whatever you can do. Or it's like actually we can give you this training, and maybe it's a SANS course, maybe it's whatever, that you're able to like improve your career and grow that way as well.
I think that's vitally important though, is just having that conversation, because I think the question that needs to be answered is, what do I need to do to get to the next
Yeah.
level? You should be able to answer that for all of your direct reports and their direct reports, and it should be clear. And again, I'll be the first to admit we're still working on it in my teams today. Because as you grow and scale, you need to look at them every year. Because when I started, when I say small but mighty, we were a 3-person team. And so the career levels were very different. I was writing my own job descriptions and writing the job that I wanted to go get. And now we have a team. We have a whole team with very different functions, very different responsibilities, and different pay brackets too.
Yeah. And it's great that the team is growing, but also like, hey, that should mean there's plenty of opportunity to grow inside the team as well, and take on new areas. You touched on imposter syndrome there. I like to say you never really recover from imposter syndrome. You're only getting better at dealing with it. But is it something you're still experiencing a lot of these days, or how have you? What mechanisms have you had to, I suppose, to help with it?
I absolutely do experience it. I had a very candid conversation with one of my leads not too long ago in a one-on-one, and told her I suffer from anxiety, and she was like, "No way! Like I did not picture that. Like you seem like an extrovert." And I was like, "Yeah, I am until I'm not. And when I'm not, I've been at conferences where by day 2, I'm like, I'm going back to the hotel room. Do not call me. Do not text me. I am done." And all I want to do is veg out and watch Silicon Valley or something. Like I just need to be alone in a quiet room, read a book. But I think everybody kind of fights these things that we are not aware of whatsoever. And some people do a great job at putting on the mask and or showing business. Um, and what I find with imposter syndrome for myself is the only thing that's helped me understand that I do know what I'm talking about is talking about the stuff I know about a little bit more. It was a weird flip for me. It was a very strange moment when I was able to step back and say, oh my gosh, I do know what I'm talking about. And people want to know what I think about this new initiative, this risk assessment, or this new technology. When they come to you and ask you a question, they're there for a reason. It's because you know your stuff. And even I'll tell you candidly, the imposter syndrome set in before this recording. Like, why would you want to talk to me? I'm just running this little team over here doing security and ad tech, and I don't think much of it. But then I also don't eat my own dog food by telling my team you need to be easier on yourself, treat yourself well. And I think it's a hard thing for a lot of people. And the people that we sometimes see going the opposite end of that spectrum can turn the folks that are a little bit more humble about their accomplishments and their experience. It can kind of make them go inward a little bit. I think that's the way I've felt as I see folks spouting what they spout everywhere out there all the time, and it makes me not necessarily feel as confident about either my abilities or that anybody wants to hear what I have to say, because there's already been how many blogs, how many posts or whatnot. But what kind of makes it real has been when people come to me and ask for a question.
Completely. And yeah, I've just really enjoyed this conversation. Like I've interviewed a whole lot of people, and there's a ton, not only a ton that you're offering, but yeah, your attitude, your candor, and your um yeah, your perspective is, yeah, it's really yeah, it's really positive. I'd love to we only have a couple of minutes here, so I'd love to end on a positive note as well. Um Security can be hard, but you've written about remaining optimistic while acknowledging that working in security can be hard. What are you excited about? What are you feeling positive about for the future of security?
Oh, if there was no better example of, I don't want to say job security because it's not necessarily a given, but if there was no better example of the thrill of technology and security in general, just look at what's happened in the last 2 years with AI. And I think, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about AI, but I think it is such an interesting new world and everybody's interested in it. And then they come to you and say, well, wait a minute, have we thought about security? Which is maybe the first time I've ever seen a
Yeah,
technological leap like this, where they're also asking about um, the security thereof, models, the training data, who gets what when, how do we compensate creators that may be getting their information scraped. So AI has really kind of juiced my optimism for just security and technology in general. People are excited about it again. We kind of, I think, maybe got burned by like 3D TVs and like some what we were calling AI and ML for the longest time that were just long if-then statements. And now we're starting to see some real energy in the space, and it's really fun to watch.
completely. I love that answer. It's also that, like, yeah, security being brought into the conversation, but being brought in as a not just a stakeholder for like that tick box review, but a stakeholder early on. It's actually like, we need your opinion, we need your sign off, we need your expertise here, which just didn't happen with so many changes. You'd find out after the fact. Now it's like, actually, those that crew over there, we need to bring them in, and it's really nice to be yeah, really nice to be part of the process. And as you say, there's tons of opportunity, both to make security products and the lives of security teams easier, but also for, yeah, security professionals to yeah, to grow their career with it as well. So yeah, that's a great note to end on. Yeah, like, as I said, I really enjoyed this conversation. If people want to follow you, follow your journey, what's the best way to do it?
The best way is probably LinkedIn. I like most of my peers that I encourage to do and then don't do myself. I need to post more, but I am very active. I do love talking to people. If you want to connect, message, just follow along and creep on anything that I send across. I do try to attend Rocky Mountain Information Security
Yeah,
Conference every June. I'm excited about that. There's a lot of conferences in Denver, so if you're ever here, there's a one coming up in February, I think. Wild West Hackin' Fest is going to be here. There's a SANS conference coming. Please, if you're around, reach out on LinkedIn. Not on X anymore. I'm trying to think. I am on Threads. Kind of mix my personal and professional on there, so I prefer LinkedIn. But I would love to shake hands, get a coffee, get a drink, whatever. If anybody is listening and wants to have a further discussion, I'm always up for that.
this is brilliant. And yeah, we'll put a link to the Rocky Mountain Information Security Conference in the show notes. And I think, yeah, we can even see some information about some of your talks. So I'd love to yeah, share that. But yeah, look, thanks so much for coming on, Joe. And yeah, I hope to either have you on or to meet you in person at some stage in the future. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was a blast.